Good.
All right, so let's get moving.
No, no.
So last week we started our new series called This or That.
It's that.
So this series, as you guys heard last week, but for some of you who weren't here, it's about the one thing that all of us struggle with in some way or another, and that's comparison. Got it. It's when we hold this in our lives next to that in someone else's life. And that's what we were talking about last week. We have this to compare to that, right? So if we're comparing this in our lives, whatever this may be, the proverbial this, which might be hair, skin, shoes, clothes, house, family, whatever it is that you're comparing to that in somebody else's life, okay? So that's what I mean when I'm referring to that. And suddenly, when we compare those things, we realize, or we feel like, we just don't measure up. That's comparison. And it's a bigger part of all of our lives than I think we realize. Comparing our this to their that can leave us feeling all kinds of ways. And I think y'all know that. It makes us feel disappointed. It makes us feel hopeless, frustrated, anxious, motivated sometimes, and sometimes even makes us feel like we're better than other people. But today, we're going to talk about one of the most powerful feelings that comparison can bring out in us. And that is the feeling of jealousy. Bum, bum, bum. Jealousy, y'all, is a very specific type.
My bad. What a quick lesson.
Sorry. Y'all. It did, didn't it? There we go.
What a quick lesson.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Time for the pictures, y'all.
Y'all, jealousy is a very specific type of comparison. It's what we feel.
Record time.
It's what we feel when we want what someone else has. And it happens way more than we realize. When that kid in your class comes in with a new pair of shoes, but you're still rocking the old ones from last year, or when your friend is so much fun that everybody wants to be around them, but you can't seem to muster up that same kind of popularity, or when the kid in small group has two parents living at home, but you have a family that's separated, or when the other kid gets the solo or the part in the play, or your sibling gets more attention than you do, or that girl has better clothes, or that boy was named team captain, whatever it is. The list could go on and on and on. If we really think about it, jealousy can show up just about everywhere we turn. And while it may not seem like that big of a deal at first, jealousy has a whole lot of potential to do harm in both the way we see ourselves and the way we see other people. For starters, jealousy, y'all, can make us feel insecure. The more jealous we become of someone else, the more insecure and uncertain we feel about ourselves. And that insecurity can quickly lead us to become unhappy. Unhappy with our stuff, unhappy with our appearance, unhappy with our friends, unhappy with our family, unhappy with our status at school. It's hard to be happy with any part of what we have or who we are when we're letting jealousy motivate the way we see it. Maybe we even end up angry. We're so jealous of what this other person has that we get mad. We're mad at our parents for not letting us have what we want. Maybe we're mad at God for not giving us the life that they have. And sometimes we're mad at the other person simply for having what we want. Have y'all experienced this? Of course you have. All of us have. Me too. That's okay. See? Hagwood too. Yeah. Or maybe you're on the other end. Maybe you don't experience a lot of jealousy when you compare yourself to others because maybe you feel pretty good about your life. When you look at your life, your this compared to other people's that, honestly, you might feel better than them. You might even look down on other people because they don't measure up to you. But the problem with comparison is that it's a cycle. While you may feel great about your life right now, while any of us, we may feel great about our lives right now, it's never enough, is it? So we keep comparing, keep trying to measure ourselves to others, and eventually we keep getting jealous. It never, ever stops. And this is where jealousy really gets tricky. because it doesn't just impact us, it impacts our relationships with other people. When we're jealous of someone else, we sometimes start keeping our distance from them, right? Because if you're jealous of somebody, you don't really want to just hang out with them and pretend like you're friends. If you do, you're a really good actor, okay? So when you're jealous of somebody, you start to keep a distance from them. We avoid them because we don't want to deal with the jealousy that we feel when we're around them. Or we start talking about them behind their backs. We tear them down to make ourselves feel better. And eventually, we stop being able to be happy for that person at all. We stop being able to celebrate the good things in their lives because it only reminds us of what we're missing in ours. That's what jealousy does, y'all. It keeps us from celebrating the good things around us, both in our lives and in the lives of others. And for me, and I hope for you, that's not the kind of life I want. I don't want to be happy simply because this in my life doesn't compare to that in someone else's. I don't want to be that kind of friend. I don't want to be that kind of family member. I don't want to be that kind of teammate or member of a small group or church or whatever that can't be happy for someone else or for myself. So what do? How do we keep ourselves from letting jealousy and comparison change the way we see ourselves and our lives and other people? Y'all, people have been dealing with this jealousy thing for thousands of years. So much so that the Bible has story after story after story of people whose lives were affected by it. One of those people is David. Y'all know who David is? Okay. David's story is crazy because he went from being a shepherd boy to being a hero on the battlefield and eventually becoming King David. Also, just a side note, David was ahead in Jesus' lineage. Okay? So David was like great-great-great-grandpa of Jesus, whatever. So he also adds that to his resume. So now at first, the king of Israel at the time of the story that we're discussing, his name was Saul. And he liked David. He really liked David. After all, David killed Goliath, that's right. David killed the giant Goliath and saved the entire nation during battle. And that was a huge win for Saul's army. And excited over the victory, the people of Israel greeted King Saul with a parade to celebrate as the army returned home from battle. And that is when things started to change. See, Saul had a major issue with the way that all these people had decided to celebrate. The song that they sang, the song that they were singing during this parade, celebrated both King Saul and David. And as king, Saul didn't want to share his fame and popularity. Take a look at his response. Here's what he said. This made Saul very angry. What's this, he said. They credit David with 10,000s and me with only thousands. Next, they'll be making him their king. Famous last words. So, from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. See what happened there? Just like that. Like from one second to another, jealousy changed the way Saul viewed David. And eventually, that jealousy changed the way he treated David. Saul's jealousy got so bad, I don't know if any of you guys remember this story from last year, but Saul's jealousy got so bad that he even tried to what?
Assassinate.
He tried to kill David. Not once, not twice, but many, many times did Saul try to kill David. And why? Because he was jealous. Saul was happy with his life and even happy with his relationship with David until he started comparing himself to David. That comparison led to jealousy, and that jealousy changed everything. It changed Saul, it changed his relationship with David, and it consumed a gigantic part of Saul's life, and not in a positive way. Saul spent a lot of his reign as king thinking of ways to hurt or kill David. How miserable is that? How miserable is that? Sort of a rhetorical question, but you can respond. Like, that's pretty bad, yeah. So I know that particular story is a dramatic story, but that, y'all, is what jealousy has the power to do, and it's a real story. To change the way we see what we have, to destroy our relationships with other people, to kill our ability to celebrate the good things happening in our lives and in theirs. Those are all things that jealousy has the power to do. When we compare ourselves to other people, we end up not celebrating others or ourselves in the process. In another chapter of the Bible, there's a book filled with wisdom that we call Proverbs. Psalms is also full of wisdom, though. Very good. I'm talking about Proverbs, though, and the writer of Proverbs explained jealousy this way. A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. Envy is just another word for jealousy. And as the writer of this proverb said, it has the potential to rot or break down your bones. Of course, not literally. It's not literally going to rot your bones out. But the writer was simply painting a picture of the way that jealousy impacts our lives from the inside out. How many of you guys have been so jealous of somebody sometimes that you can just feel it in your belly? You feel it in your belly? When you're like, oh, I just hate her because she's so pretty. Or I just hate him because he has those super cool shoes that I really, really want. Or that phone, or that, whatever it is. Y'all know what I'm talking about, don't you? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, think about your bones for a second in reference to this scripture. Think about your bones for a second. They're a pretty important and crucial part of your body. They're the core of what holds you up, right? They are your structure. They are what the rest of your body is built on, right? Right, okay. So the writer of this proverb is painting a picture for us. So I told you that, like, jealousy or envy is not literally going to rot your bones. But the writer here is painting a really awful picture that envy hits at the core of who you are. Jealousy rots you to your core. It breaks you down and it eats at you. When you compare your life to someone else's, the jealousy you feel eats at you, that gnawing in your belly kind of feeling. It can cause the way you see yourself to break down, and it can even rot your ability to celebrate anything good about your life or anybody else's. This is what happened to Saul, you guys. Jealousy rotted everything in his life, everything. It consumed him so much so that he could hardly lead the nation because of it. Think about that. Think about being so jealous of someone that it stops everything you do. It consumes your mind and your emotions, and you cannot accomplish anything else in your life. It's not really a far-fetched thought, though, if you think about it. But David kept his heart at peace. And as the proverb tells us, that's what gives life to the body. See, while jealousy breaks down, peace builds up. So even though David was hurt by Saul's jealousy, he never went down the road of comparison with Saul himself. David kept his eyes on what was promised to him, the good in his life. And that helped him to stay at peace. Although, if you think about it, there was a lot that David could have turned around and been jealous of Saul about. Saul had all the power, right? Saul was treating him badly. Like that, it could have gone both ways, but he chose to stay at peace. And the same can be true for us, y'all. When we keep our eyes focused on what we do have, we'll find more peace. When we stop focusing on what other people have, we'll be better able to enjoy the good in our lives and the good in theirs. We can appreciate the great things happening in other people's lives as well as our own when we're focusing on those good things. Because the truth is this: when we stop comparing, we can better celebrate others and ourselves. So, how do we avoid comparison and jealousy and choose to celebrate others and ourselves instead? Just checking my time here, okay? I think we can do this with two things. One, it starts with you, within yourself. Me, it starts with us, okay? Think about what you do have that is worth celebrating. And trust me, there is something that you have that is worth celebrating. Like I told you last week, there's always something to be thankful for. Maybe it's a good relationship with your parents or one of your parents. Or maybe it's a really cool older sibling. Or maybe one really solid best friend. Maybe it's the fact that you made the team or simply had the courage to try out for the team, which is a thing to celebrate. Maybe it's a sunny day, or maybe it's hearing a song that you really love, or the fact that you know that God loves you. Whether it's big or small, start avoiding jealousy by celebrating the good that's going on in your own life. And then the second, celebrate somebody else. And I don't mean just anybody else. This is where it gets tricky. I want you to try to find a way to celebrate the person that you're most jealous of right now. I challenge myself on this too. This one's a tough one, okay? I know it's not going to be easy, but remember, celebration will help you move toward peace, and peace will build you up. And this is just as much for you as it is for another person. So congratulate them for getting the lead in the play, or compliment their new skateboard trick, or their new shoes, or their beautiful skin, or their beautiful hair, or whatever it is. And if all you can do, if you can't bring yourself to do any of that, if all you can do is pray for them, that works too. Prayer is a great place to start in celebrating and appreciating someone else. So, I know it's easy to talk about this stuff here, but it's not as simple in real life. I do understand that. The things that I talk to you guys about, I also struggle to practice in my own life, okay? So don't think that I'm just preaching at you things that I don't realize are hard. I do. But they're things that we need to talk about, okay? We want to celebrate you here, okay? And we want to help you celebrate other people. We want to help you practice this stuff because these guys, we know how it can change your lives for the better, okay? So as we head out into our small groups, I want you to think about opening up to your small group as you answer this question. Last week, the ladies had a really fantastic talk. They were really open, and I was really happy about that. I would love to hear that the guys are doing the same thing. This is the question I want you to think about. What's one thing or person that I can celebrate? All right, let's roll. Let's go to our groups.